Now, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi urged leaders of the world's 20 big economies to do whatever necessary to ensure that the Israel-Hamas war does not expand into a wider conflict. He was speaking at the opening of a virtual summit of G20 Nations. India's year-long presidency of the grouping ends this month before Brazil takes over next month.
सहायता का समय से और निरंतर पहुंचना आवश्यक है। यह सुनिश्चित करना भी जरूरी है कि इजरायल और हमास की लड़ाई किसी तरह का क्षेत्रीय रूप धारण न कर ले। पश्चिम एशिया क्षेत्र में असुरक्षा और अस्थिरता की स्थिति हम सब के लिए चिंता का विषय है। आज हमारा एक साथ आना इस बात का प्रतीक है कि हम सभी मुद्दों के प्रति संवेदनशील हैं और इनके समाधान के लिए एक साथ खड़े हैं।
The virtual meeting was announced during the New Delhi summit in September. The virtual meeting is being held to review progress on policy suggestions and goals announced at the annual G20 summit organized in New Delhi and to determine how to speed up progress towards objectives. That meeting was overshadowed by Russia's war in Ukraine. However, India managed to bring the world leaders on the same page to produce a consensus document. The virtual summit was attended by Russian President Vladimir Putin, Chinese Premier Li Qiang, Japan's Fumio Kishida, Canada's Justin Trudeau, among others. Trudeau sharing the space, the Indian Prime Minister, is noteworthy, given the summit was happening after Trudeau accused Indian government of killing separatist pro-Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Vancouver. The accusations made by Canada triggered a months-long diplomatic standoff. Russian President Vladimir Putin's attendance was also notable, as the summit was the first event in a very long time that includes both Putin and leaders of the West. The West has been at odds with Russia ever since it invaded Ukraine in February last year.
Россия выступает за то, чтобы восстановить дух открытого и взаимовыгодного международного экономического сотрудничества, основывающегося на нормах Устава ООН и принципах коллегиальной и взаимоуважительной совместной работы. Важно добиваться действенной оптимизации системы глобального экономического управления.
Our principal diplomatic correspondent Sidhan Sibol is now joining us live from New Delhi for more on this. Sidhan Sibol, good to see you. What more did the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlight during the virtual summit?
Well, Eric, I'm just standing in front of India's External Affairs Ministry, and we are now waiting for the closing statement by the Indian Prime Minister, and also a key briefing by the Indian External Affairs Minister, the Foreign Minister, of course, and the Finance Minister and the Sherpa as well. Now, essentially, we saw the opening statements, the 14-minute-long opening statement, saw the Indian Prime Minister focusing on the ongoing conflict in West Asia. He talked about how terrorism is something that is a concerning development, but also concerning is the killing of the civilians. And the second aspect was the issues of the Global South. Remember, this year has been about India's G20 presidency, but also India taking a lead when it comes to the Global South as well, with hosting of 2 virtual summits regarding the voice of the Global South. And third, of course, he pointed out to what India has been doing, especially when it comes to the passage of key women's reservation bill in the first session of the new Indian Parliament. So several aspects, but essentially India in its 1-year-long presidency of the G20 was able to make sure there are consensus on issues regarding the worries of the Global South, and inclusion of Africa as a permanent member of the G20 is being touted as one of the key outcomes of India's G20 presidency.
All right, keep an eye on the External Affairs Minister speech after he concludes this virtual meeting. I've been talking to our principal diplomatic correspondent, Sidhan Sibol. Thank you, Sidhan. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.